Is this your first Bible study? Oh my gosh, you guys, that's amazing.
I have to confess, like, for some reason, I thought Bible study was only online, so I would have been here weeks ago.
That's amazing.
I had no clue.
Yes, if you guys don't know, Joseph has like an absolutely amazing testimony. Everybody's testimonies are amazing. But ever since Joseph introduced himself to me like a month ago, I was like, there's something about this guy that is just amazing. So tell us a sin that you're struggling with.
I think my biggest one, and it has to be pride. Like,
Mm.
I always, and I, because I have an issue with, like, I give it to the Lord, and then I take it back.
We're going to talk about that one.
And we worked on it the other day, like, well, yeah, like, you're being prideful, like, you can do it better. And really just, I mean, almost it's like a little bit of just disobedience, like, hey, I told you not to do, like, not really things that are big things, but personal things with
Mm.
the Lord. Where he said, hey, this is how I want you to act. And then I'm like, like, I think I can do it better, and so, like, I think I'm pretty prideful sometimes. Like, I think I'm pretty prideful all the time, and
Yeah.
that's probably the one I have to work on the most.
Pride in taking control. That is a good one. Oh, we're going to talk about that a lot today. So that was great. Mama Shirley, what's something you're struggling with? She's like, actually, nothing at the moment. Mm. Amen. That's good. That's good. Mm. Amen. Yes, I do believe that. So if you didn't hear, she struggles with speaking, and that is real. I'm sure a lot of us, especially in my generation, are nervous to speak. Sorry, bestie. You're up. Christiana's here. So, a sin that you're struggling with.
I would say, like, doing things that I know what I would regret later. Like,
Hmm.
let's say I get upset in a moment with, like, a family member, like a friend. I feel like sometimes I react a way that I shouldn't. Not, like, super angry, but I feel like I could react better in certain situations.
Yeah, that is real. That is very real. I'm sorry. I keep getting a thing in my brain, and I know God has been like shouting it at me, and I try to push it away because I don't want to call my dad out. But it was what Joseph said, and it's like when you try to give God something and then you immediately take control of it again. My dad's listening right now too, and he knows this is a problem. But there are many times where he's like, should I get this? Should I get this one or this one? Like, should I get this shirt or this shirt? Or these pairs of shoes or these pairs of shoes? And I give him my opinion. And then he's like, actually, I'm just going to do like what I was thinking before. And I'm like, you just answered the question that I was supposed to help you with. Well, why even ask me to help if you're going to take control of it on your own? And that's exactly how God feels when we try to give him our problems or try to give him something that we're struggling with. And then we just take control of it on our own. And he's like, well, you're going to regret that later. He's just trying to protect us. Okay, we're going to get one more answer. Tiffany. No, it's okay. I love that. I love that.
Because the one I was going to say is distraction.
That's so great. As she's on her phone, distraction, everybody. It's
I just wanted to clarify.
no, that's okay. I wasn't like trying to like catch you at it like in like class. I'm sure there's times like where you catch students on their phone and you're like, so do you have the answer to this question or are you gonna listen?
I definitely find myself distracted when I know I should be, if I'm supposed to be praying or meditating, my time studying, and I'm doing housework, or I'm doing other things that when I know that's my time with the Lord, and I need
Yeah.
to be more focused on keeping that time and keeping that full time. Because I set aside every morning, and then I'll start, and then something will catch my brain, and I need to do this.
Yep.
I need to do
Yep.
distraction.
That is something very real.
Distraction from work.
Yeah. It's like you're sitting down, you're doing your Bible study or you're praying, and then something like you get reminded of something that you forgot about later, and you're like, I can't forget to do that again. So then you completely wipe what you were doing before, and then you go do that. That is definitely something I have done, and I do pretty often. So thank you for that, because you called me out on something that I didn't even realize that I was doing as often as I am. So we're going to get into our study today. So if you have your Bible, or if you want to take notes, or if you just have if you like to follow along, I'm going to make it very easy because I know I would like it to be very easy for me. But we are going to be in the book of Hebrews, if we didn't know that already. So let me get that out over here. And if you notice my sticky notes at some point as you see them, please don't judge them. My cat was attacking them earlier. Patience is another thing I'm struggling with because I just got a kitten and he was attacking my Bible as I was doing my Bible study, and he ripped one of the pages and it made me so livid. I kid you not, I was sitting here and I was praising, and then he comes up, attacks me, and then attacks my Bible. And I was like, that's just so rude. And I was like, and I made him look at the Bible and I said, you do not be disrespectful to the Lord. And I was like, wait, maybe he's just a cat. He doesn't know. But anyways, so we're going to be in Hebrews chapter 3. And let me see where I was going to have us start off, because I don't want us to be all over the place and not making sense. So, yes, Hebrews 3. We're going to be going from... Okay. If you look at Hebrews chapter 3, at the end of verse 7, at the end of verse 14, and the end of chapter 4, verse 7 as well. It all ends with, today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts. And as I was doing this whole page of study in one day. I had so much time and I was like, ooh, I'm really going to learn about the Lord today. It felt like I was going to get something out of it. And as I was sitting here, I was like, why is he repeating, today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts? And I was thinking about it for a while because it kind of just grazed my brain, and I was just like, it kept coming up, and I was like, okay, I can't ignore it now. He said it 3 times. And when I looked down at the notes, it gives a little, especially in my study Bible, it gives you a little note to where this verse came from. So I got led to Psalm 95, and it led me to verse 8 through 11, and I'm going to read that for you today. It says, do not harden your hearts as you did in Meribah, I think that's right, as you did in that day at Messiah, in the wilderness where your ancestors tested me. They tried me, though they had seen what I did. Verse 10, they are people whose hearts go astray, and they do not know my ways. So I declared on oath in my anger, they shall never enter my rest. So here we are seeing that after being saved and brought out of death, and after overcoming sickness and anger and depression and addiction, why were they testing God even though we've already seen him bring us out of these places? Right, literally. And I was thinking that to myself because for myself, in my personal testimony, I at a very young age was struggling with, anxiety and depression, like I'm sure many of us have in our lives, even if we didn't know that we were. And for a long time, I was still questioning if God found value in what I had to offer for him, because I felt like I was just failing him time and time again, or I felt like something would happen with my family or happen within my family. And I would think to myself, okay, God, is this really going to work out? Is this really going to work out? And, going into college soon, I know I have been running my dad's wallet thin with all of these college trips. And I just think to myself, there's so many things that I have that I want to do, but it's God, are you going to work it out? Are you going to make this happen for me? Like, I know there's a mission trip happening coming up in this year, and I wanted to do it. And I was like, I got to do this. Like, this is something that'd be an amazing experience. But I was like, I cannot ask my parents to put that much money into it after seeing how much they put into this year already. And it's just like, I'm questioning God at something that I know he's going to work out. So why do we struggle to trust God? Well, it's just how we struggle to trust in the rest of our relationships. Okay, I'm just going to ask a question, and I'm sure all of your hands are going to go up, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How many of us think back to high school, okay? How many of us have had a relationship in high school where we either didn't trust somebody? Ooh, hang on. I'm going to call some people out. It's okay. How many of you have had a relationship, not even in high school, just in general, where you have been cheated on or you have cheated on somebody? Yeah. Well, that doesn't mean that you've done it. It's just one of the two. I'm not going to make you call out that much. When you have, here's another one. How many of us had trust issues in our families? Maybe with a parent. Maybe with a child. Yeah. How many of us have had friendship trust issues where your friend kind of did you wrong or you really needed them and they weren't there for you? Yeah. It's happened to all of us. So because of these things that we have gone through, because so many times people have failed us, and we're going to fail people all the time. People are going to fail us all the time. Of course, it's going to be hard to trust God, someone we haven't even seen. We've seen the miracles he's done in our lives and that he's done in other people's lives, but we haven't physically been able to touch him and, really take in who God is. And it's hard for us to even fathom how good he is. And that's why it's really hard for us to trust him at times. And it's really easy for the devil to get in our brains and make us doubt the things that God has already done and the things that he's going to do. So that being, I was having a hard time recently. I'm not going to put everything on blast, as I've already done, but within my family, I'm sure we all know family members or friends who have not yet come to the Lord or who are just set on not coming to the Lord. Maybe they've had a bad experience in church, or they've just had bad experiences in life, or maybe they're just they just never knew God from the beginning. They were never raised with him, or they were never given that step, or that seed was planted in their life. And it breaks my heart because some of my closest family members and friends don't believe in God. And it makes me so scared to think, what if something happens to them? What if they're gone before they can even know God's goodness and before they can accept him? And they're going to be sent to eternal suffering. And I feel like I was struggling with that recently because my grandmother, she has survived twice from breast cancer. And she is literally a survivor. And I know God has worked through her life, but she does not believe it. And through everything that she's been through all the blessings that she's received, she is still stuck on the bad experiences that she's had in church. And she will not let me tell her otherwise. She will not let me tell her, just come to church once, or just, just let me try to just convince you. But that's me trying to take too much matters into my own hands to make somebody else believe in a God that I know so good. And it was hard for me to trust God when he was telling me, he's like, I know you're doing it out of love, and I know you really want her to accept me and to see all the great things that you've seen, but just trust the fact that I got you. All it takes is for one person in your family to be praying over other people in your family to make him work in your life. My dad has not gone to church probably since I was 2 or 3 years old, when we went to Catholic church, or we only ever went to church for funerals or for weddings or things like that. We never really got anything out of it. And then my amazing friend over there, Christiana, brought me to the River of Life. And I started coming here, and my dad started coming here. And he even decides to come here on days that I'm with my mom. Or he'll come here on weekends that I'm not here. And I catch him saying things that I'm just like, wow, who would have known that little old you would be saying that? You know, and all it took was for a friend to be so filled with the Lord that I saw him walking in her life every single day for me to be like, I want whatever she's got. And then my dad's like, I want whatever my daughter's got. And then I have other friends that I've brought to church or that I've just talked about. Like I've just mentioned God around them, and they're like, well, we all are like learning about like God together. And it's like, it's so crazy how if you just kind of, it's hard to let go of the control that you want to take on your like life and on your path or on other people's paths. But when you finally like let go and find peace in knowing that God is going to provide, he's going to provide the things that you were asking for and even more, it's just going to flow and it will knock you over like you've never imagined beforehand. So moving on with that, I want to talk about the importance of faith, because this whole message is about trusting God, because trust issues are something that we experience a lot in relationships. And what is a relationship with God, right? Like literally with God, it's not just the religion that you're here. And I feel like whenever somebody asks me now, they're like, oh, well, like, are you Christian or Catholic? It's like, it doesn't matter. I'm a woman of God. That's who I am. And, you know, like, yeah, I go to a Christian church, but I'm not going to just identify with the religion as a whole. I'm going to identify with my relationship with God first. So anytime that I think of my relationship with God, I think about, okay, having to trust. You know, that's one big thing that anybody in a relationship, and I know I'm going to make this really silly reference. So I'm watching a show. I just finished the show, actually. It's a really silly show. It's called Love is Blind. It's on... It's on Netflix. It's a really silly show, and actually this season there was a couple that literally chose each other because they both believed in God, and it's actually really beautiful. It's like, ooh, the Lord being on like Netflix? Wow, all right, that's great. But the one thing that I heard them say over and over and over again when they were like interviewing each other was that trust was the biggest thing in their relationship. It wasn't necessarily the attraction they had to the person. It wasn't, you know, the connections that they had. It's really just the trust between two people that makes you want to stay with them. That's something that you have to work at every single day. How often do you guys have to work on trust in your relationship? Right? That's amazing. That's amazing. See, that's good. And then in our friendship, we've been friends since kindergarten, you guys. We're 17. We've been friends since we were 5. And I cannot tell you how many times that we've had to work on trust in our friendship. And it's a lot of learning. It's a lot of learning because we've never done this life before, you know? And it's like I've had to work on my trust in my relationship with my own mother. And I have to remind myself, like, she's never raised a 17-year-old daughter before. You know, I'm her first daughter. I'm her only daughter. And I got to have grace for her because she's learning just like I am. You know, it took me a while to feel like that. So it took a lot of conversation, and it took a lot of breaking down how one another felt. And then the trust started to build. But that's exactly what God needs. We need to break down, and we need to tell him exactly how we're feeling. We need to tell him, okay, I know I did wrong. God, I know I did wrong, and I know I was gossiping about this one person, but you got to hear me out. And you tell him, it's better to talk to God about it than it is to spread all this negativity around other people, so then he can check you. He can be like, okay, I hear you, but now you got to listen to me, and you got to understand that this is the right way. So when it comes to trust, I looked up trust. I was like, okay, I want to get the definition of trust, But then I was like, you know what? Okay, definition of trust, cool. What's the definition of faith? And the reason I was like, okay, trust and faith, we hear those things intertwined. Faith, when you search up synonyms for faith, trust is the first one. And then when you search up synonyms for trust, faith is the first one. And I was like, wow, God, that's really cool. You're like really cool. What? So I made a little acronym for faith. And I was like, God is telling me that there is, there's your dictionary definition of words. But I was like, for me, faith is fearlessly acknowledging in the hardship. Fearlessly acknowledging God. Acknowledging that God is still there, that he's still present in our lives, that he's still working in the hardship. It's really easy to trust God when he's doing amazing things in our lives, right? When we're being filled, like if we get a promotion at work, my mom just got a promotion and she was like, this is great. And I was, like, praise God, like he is working in your life. I'm so proud and I'm so happy for you. And then things happen, life gets hard. And then it's like, okay, it's a little bit more difficult to fearlessly acknowledge God in the hardship. And one thing that I've always admired, very much admired about Mama Shirley and Tiffany is that in the hardship and with all the loss and with all the struggle that has been happening, you guys are undoubtedly fearlessly acknowledging him every single day. And I'm sure it's not easy, and I'm sure it's really hard, but you're really setting a beautiful example. And it's just something I wanted to bring up, because if we could all be like that, could we just imagine how many more people that would impact, right? So the title of this whole thing is something that I heard. I can't even take credit for it. So I listened to a Christian-based podcast called Christ with Coffee on Ice. And I know, it's beautiful. It's so cute. It's a great podcast, you guys. And she's like, I can't even take credit for this because I heard it from a different podcast. But she was like, when we are tested time and time again, when we feel like, okay, I'm going to get real with y'all. And this is making me really nervous because it's really uncomfy to talk about. But I'm going to talk about it, not because I want to, but because I have to. Okay, he's not going to let me get away with it. And I already talked about it on the podcast. But especially, I don't know, I haven't been an adult yet. But especially as a teenager, going through life now with all of the perverted mindsets and all of the access to horrible things online, every single time I feel like I get on a high road, a sin I've dealt with a lot is lust, okay? And every time I was like clean for like 2 years, y'all. I was like, ooh, this is great. I'm on fire for God. And then I was tested and I failed. And I was so mad at myself. I was so mad and I felt so guilty. And then I was like, okay, cool. 2 months clean, failed again. And then it got to a week and then failed again. It got to a day and then it just kept getting worse. And I was like, okay, well, I'm still reading my Bible every day. I'm still going to church every day. But he's like, I am testing you time and time again. And I'm letting these things occupy your mind, occupy your body to see if you can show me that you're ready for the next step. And I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready because my faith was being tested, but he wasn't trusting it. I was telling him that, okay, God, I'm going to follow you. I'm going to do your ways. I want to be a better woman of God. And, I'm going to go and I pray that you use me today. But he's like, girl, you got to get it together first. How are you going to go here and be an example for other young women who are getting closer to God, or for other people in the youth that are getting closer to God, if I'm testing you time and time again and you keep showing me that you're not ready? But again, I was trying to go about it my own way. I was trying to get over it my own way. And I was praying to God, but I wasn't listening to him. I was praying to him and I was telling him how bad I felt and I was crying and I was like the whole dramatics, okay? I turned on my worship music and I was praising and he was like, you haven't even heard me say anything yet. Like you're not listening to what I'm saying. You're over here just like, okay, cool, like we're good. Yeah, I forgot about what you just did. But you're going to do it again because you're not listening to what I'm saying. And how am I supposed to trust you if you're not taking my advice? So earlier this week, I have a friend at school, and he's currently going through kind of a breakup. Like they weren't together, but they were kind of together. You guys know, like not necessarily. No, it wasn't even friends with benefits. There was no benefits part. They were basically just friends, okay? Like, no, I would be straight up if I was friends with benefits. But no, it was just like they were kind of flirting. It was weird. Just genuinely, I was like, okay, but I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to pray that you find peace and that you find the right person for you. But he was over here and he's asking me, he's like, okay, well, I don't know what to do about the situation because he's in a predicament now. And he's asking me for my advice. And I'm like, okay, well, do you want like my harsh advice, which is going to be my godly advice, you know? Or do you want me to just be like, just listen to you and agree with what you're going to say? Because those are two different things. Maybe what you think is best for somebody or what God thinks is best for somebody. And what they want is definitely not the same. And so he was like, just tell me like what you would do in this situation. So I go ahead and I give him my whole spiel and I'm like, okay, this is what I would do. And then he's like, yeah, but like this, and I'm like, okay, so what do you want from me? You just came to me and asked like for my advice, and you're over here complaining about my advice. And then he goes to my friend Haley, who's watching right now, and he's like, Haley, I don't know what to do about this. No. Same thing he gave to me. And she's like, okay, well, this is what you should probably do. Like, you need to move on. You need to like remember, like, okay, you're just hurting yourself. And give her basically the same thing that I told him. And he's like, but actually, maybe not. And then he goes to another one of our friends. And so the same thing that he said to us. And she's like, you know what, maybe just have hope that it's going to work, maybe just have hope that, it's going to, that things are going to work with them. And it's like, she's just really like telling him what he wants to hear. And he's like, you know what, thank you so much. And then he walks out of the room like he's like, okay, my day is great. Now I heard what I wanted to hear. That is how a lot of our prayers go. We go and we ask God and we're like, hey, I'm struggling with this. How do I fix it? And he's like, okay, girl, like, let me tell you what you got to do. And then we're just like, I'm going to find out for myself. And then we go and we like, go ahead and we mess up and we listen. The friend that told us what we want to hear, that's society. That's music. That's anything that the devil uses to feed into what we just want to hear. Right? So why do we expect God to trust us? And how are we supposed to trust God? Because if I'm over here like, okay, God, can you help me with the situation? Like, for example, this past week, I've just been swamped with homework because I've had things for choir to do, and I'm missing days of school. Obviously, I'm going to have homework to catch up on. And I was just feeling so overwhelmed. I was running on like 4 hours of sleep every single day. And I was like, okay, Red Bull, caffeine, we're doing great, And I was just crashing. And I was like, God, what am I supposed to do? I feel like I have a million things to do today. And it was a Sunday. And he's like, girl, you got to rest. Like, today's your day of rest. And I was like, actually, but I'm going to get a couple of these things done because I'm not doing anything today. So he's like, why am I going to be over here trying to give you advice if you're just going to do what you want to do anyway? So I challenge all of us in our prayers and in our studies to just take time for silence, to just take time to not talk, And sometimes it's easy in our brains to start talking for us, but when we're just talking out loud, it's like, okay, this is good. You're learning things. And it just, I catch myself doing that all the time. Like ever since I started my Christian-based podcast, I treat every single one of my studies like it's a podcast. And I kid you not, like afterwards, I'll be like, you know what, God, this is so good. And then I'll start talking about like how I would if I was talking on the podcast. And then I go to sleep. And he's like, well, it was great talking to you. It was great listening, you know? God is a great listener. We really don't deserve him. Like, if I could be a listener like God, whoa, that'd be so great. But in our prayers, take time to just listen. And even if it's just the peace of silence, I'm sure our days are very hectic, you know, driving to work or driving to school, or, you know, if you have kids, you got to drive them to their appointments, or for like if they do dance or if they do choir or if they have gymnastics or whatever it is, you got to take them to that. And then that doesn't end till 8. So you get home at 9 and you eat dinner and it's like 10:30 and you're about to go to bed. And it's like, okay, I got to do my Bible study real quick and then I got to crash out. But maybe instead of feeling the need to just read the word, maybe just embrace in his presence. See if that works. And if it doesn't, it's okay. You know, not everything's going to work for you, and everybody's meant to have a different relationship with God. But it's something that I've been challenging myself to do. What I noticed in my own life recently is that trusting God is not just listening to him. It's kind of what Joseph said. Letting go of control of your life. And I know pop culture, you guys, I can't do it. Pop culture tells us, and I cannot tell you how many times I've seen these videos on TikTok or I've seen it on Instagram where you see these influential speakers who get paid like thousands of dollars to go to these conferences and to speak into like groups of people. And they're like, okay, they're out here, they're talking. And then I'm just going to kind of like give an example. If I was a motivational speaker, hang on, let me get into it. You need to choose yourself. You are the most important person in the world. You need to invest in yourself. If you're not investing in yourself, other people's lives are going to happen. You got to let them happen. But you got to take control of your life. You know, if something bad is happening, y'all, that is such bogus. I'm sorry. Like, influential speakers and modern day social media influencers try to convince us that we are more important than the person sitting next to us. You know what I'm saying? Can we just take a second and pray? Please? Please? I love our church. I really do. You guys, I've talked about it, and Tiffany has talked about it, the importance of fellowship. It is something so beautiful. And I told myself I wasn't going to cry today, and now I'm going to cry. But I have found it like really hard, especially like coming to God, finding people who have the same values as you. Like, we all read the same book. We're all learning the same thing. And we're learning to love each other, like more than we love ourselves. And that's like us learning to be like Jesus, right? And coming to a church where everybody genuinely comes together and prays for one another. It's not one of those things where it's like, okay, girl, I'm going to pray for you. And then you never do. It's like these people pray for you and they pray hard, because genuinely when we all come together, we are powerful. And I am just so blessed to be a part of an amazing church where I'm honestly just honored to even be speaking up here. I was talking to Christy on the ride here, and I was just thinking, I was like, really, me? Like, God, really? Like, and it's something I prayed for. It's like, but, it's really shocking when things do happen. And it's like, it's actually, coming into works, and you're seeing God working in your life. It's really beautiful, and I'm glad and very grateful to do it with everybody here. Stop. You're so cute. So what I was mentioning is that in my life, I have tried to take a lot of control because I'm a busy person when it comes to a high schooler standpoint. I've had many people like ask me like, girl, like, do you have free time for yourself? Yes, I do. I promise I do. But I put it in my planner. And that's something that I've had to learn is that, throughout time, things are going to be super chaotic. Things are going to be, all over the place. And for me, when I got my planner, I was like, okay, this is going to help me remember things that I may not remember later, causing less stress. And it's very helpful. And I still use my planner to this day. And I feel like many people like diss on me. Like my friends are like, girl, you're such like a millennial. You're using a planner. And I'm like, look at my grades. Like it's clearly working. But what I've noticed and what I've stopped doing recently was putting my time with God in my planner. Because anytime I would put God in my planner, I would make it feel like it's an obligation. I would just do it or pray or do my Bible study to just cross it off and be like, okay, it's done, And it's like, God is not an obligation. He should never be an obligation. And if he's feeling like an obligation, there is something you got to do to change up your routine with him. And that's how it is, right? Isn't that how it is like in marriage and things like that? Like if, you're living with somebody 24/7, and I'm sure it gets repetitive, but to keep the marriage alive, to keep, the connection there, you have to change things up. I'm sure when you start having kids, your life changes. And, I haven't been down that road yet. And I've had a crazy baby fever, and my dad yells at me. And I'm like, I'm not even with somebody. Don't worry. Like, you don't have to worry about me going and just having a kid. But I, just want to be a mom so badly. It's just, something that's been on my heart. But not yet. I don't need a baby. My godmom just had her miracle baby about, 5 months ago. And let me tell you, that testimony is beautiful. Her and her husband have been trying for years, literally. And the doctor, she went through a surgery where, if you don't know, you have 2 tubes as a woman to carry a child. One of her tubes, she had a miscarriage, and it was an ectopic baby. So she lost one of her tubes, and they're like, girl, you can't have kids. You're not going to be able to carry kids. When people try to tell that to Sarah, what happened? And I was praying. We were praying hard for her. And I was like, I know it's going to work. I have a feeling. And I know that God's going to grant them with a child. And he did. They had a beautiful baby girl. She was born a month early at a completely healthy weight. She has been on... My godmom, she can breastfeed and gives her enough milk. And every time I see their beautiful daughter, it's just literally, it warms my heart because she is literally a gift from God. And I'm just like, how do you not believe in God after seeing those things? And I think I'm preaching to the choir because we all believe in God here, right? We all believe in God. And it's like, but if we could just get this out to somebody who's wavering in faith, right? But anyways, God is not an obligation. So taking time with God, I had to change some things up. I had to change when I took time for God. I started praying during school. I've started, before tests or before, maybe walking in between classes. It's just okay, God, that was a good one. Let's get on to the next. We're just chilling or just walking in silence and just praying or listening to music that, fills my soul rather than my mind. And I thought it was really funny this past weekend because I was, again, struggling with trust as we all do. And I had the regional honor choir this past weekend, which is a choir you audition for, and many kids around the state of Arizona do it, and there's 8 different regions, and I can go on and on and on about it. But this honor choir is filled with amazing musicians, and I was honored to be within those amazing musicians. And there was a song that we were doing that has a beautiful solo. And I was just like, I was practicing hard for the solo. I've been praying on it. And I was like, okay, I really want this solo. And I go into the audition room, and I'm so nervous. Like, I'm sweating. Like, my temperature went up. Like, my friend was like, are you okay? Because she felt my skin, and she's like, girl, you're burning up. Like, there's something going on. And I don't know, like, even after the audition was over, I was shaking. I was nervous. And I was like, okay, stop, just breathe. The reason you're so stressed out right now is because you haven't even prayed to God about it. You haven't even asked him to just fill you with peace about it. So then once I did, I was like, okay, just give me peace in knowing that if I get it or if I don't, I'm okay, you know? So then long story short, I got the solo, and it really did make me feel like at ease, but I was like, okay, the things you do if you pray, really. But we were going through the translation of the song because it's in Latin. And the whole solo, the solo was literally just like 3 words, but you're doing these really cool like trills and stuff like that. It was very operatic. And the 3 words were literally just saying praise God in Latin. And it was beautiful looking and being like 100 people. And when you go into the arts, you either get people who really don't believe in God, or you get people who are crazy Mormon. There is like no between. And then there's me. I'm like right here. But that's how it is. You get one or the other. That's about it. So then I'm like singing the solo, and there was a moment when the conductor himself, he's like, Brie, can you come stand up here? And I was like, okay. So I stand up there, and let's imagine I'm over here, and I was supposed to be singing out to the audience. He's like, no, I want you to turn around, look at the choir. And he's like, I want all you guys to look at Brie's expression when she sings this solo. And this is after I knew what it meant. So then I'm over here just expressing it. It's like beautiful. And then he was just going on and on about it. And then he mentioned, afterwards, I'll give it context afterwards, I promise. I have a recording of it, actually. But I was looking out, and the whole time when I was singing it in front of the choir, I was just thinking to myself, all of these people are praising God, and they don't even know. All these people are getting this little seed planted into them, and they don't even know it. And maybe years down the road, they're going to think back, and they're going to be like, wow, who would have known in 2024 at the honor choir that I was in my senior year of high school? That's when God started working in my life. Let's see. Oh, we got some. Okay, cool. Every single time I go to church, I either choose to go into youth or I stay in the congregation and I learn and I listen to Doug. I love hearing Doug speak, you guys. It is amazing. He's literally filled with the Lord. It's so great. But this past weekend, Doug was speaking, and I just had a feeling. I was like, I gotta go into youth today. There's something I'm gonna learn there. And I walk in, and there's not many people in there. There's maybe 5 of us at the beginning. And I walk in, and I'm like, okay, what is this going to be about, Lord? What are you teaching me today? Because I walk in, and it's a crowd of people who don't really like to talk a lot, and that's okay, but we got to get the shyness out of them, right? And I was like, okay, maybe that's what I'm learning today. Here's me trying to predict what I'm supposed to learn when God's like, girl, be quiet. Let me talk. So by the end of youth, we were told by Miss Kim to memorize a Bible verse. And the Bible verse that I chose specifically has been with me since my start of even believing in God. And at the end, I would say, of my freshman year, maybe beginning of my sophomore year, I felt like I was on fire for God, but I lost so many people around me. I lost so many friends. I lost so many like family members that I was close to because life gets busy. But at the same time, it was just people that I would hang out with every day or that I talked to every day I couldn't, because either there was a falling out or there was an argument and I felt awkward and I'm like, I don't want to talk to them after, we just had this like thing happen between us. And I feel like I was constantly having to validate myself in front of groups of people. I was running for choir president that year, and I know so many people who did not necessarily were fine of me. And it just like broke my heart because like I literally have such great intentions and things I want to do for this choir, but you're not listening to me. You're not giving me the chance. And I was really fighting for myself. I was really trying to do God's job for me. I was trying to do his job. And it just led me to feeling more discouraged. And I don't know why. You guys, don't ever do this. And this is something I have to tell my friends all the time. At the time, I was reading the Bible for the first time. And I just thought it was a darn great idea to start from Genesis and go all the way through. Like I was going to learn everything. Once I got to Leviticus, I was like, y'all, this isn't happening. This is not clicking. I was like, you know what? Okay. I was like, wow, this is all the great stuff y'all been talking about. And so I was in the book of Exodus at the time, and I was just reading through it. A lot of it was just going over my head, but then I just started like sobbing out of nowhere because I finally felt like the presence of God after not feeling it for a while. And Exodus 14:14, the Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. I was spending so much time and so much energy fighting for myself, trying to get others to like me, when God was like, not necessarily like, you don't ever need to be nice to these people or you don't ever need to be around them, but there's a reason that I'm taking them out of your life for this season, is because you're depending too much on their validation of you. You're depending on them to be your own identity. So let me have you figure out who you are in me first, and then I'll bring people to you that, believe in God. I'll bring friends to you. I'll bring, your family members are going to start talking to you about God because you're going to radiate the joy of the Lord. And so when we were told at the end of our youth group, she was like, okay, memorize a Bible verse. I've always had Exodus 14:14 in my Instagram bio. I didn't have the whole thing memorized. I only had the first part was the Lord will fight for you. Sounds great for me. The Lord will fight for me. Perfect. Cool. I'm going to go do my thing, but you still fight for me. He's like, no, girl. The second part's more important. You need to be still. You need to get off of whatever juice you're on, and you need to be still. So again, there's so many times where we've seen people in the Bible who were asked to just trust in God. Like, I absolutely love the book of Job. To have the trust in God that Job had, I don't even know. I hope to get there one day. Because, boy, he had everything thrown at him. God was like, you know what? Okay, fine. Let's see how he reacts when his wealth, his family, everything's taken away from him. I believe he's still going to trust in me. And people mocked Job. People mocked him, and they're like, you're literally over here like looking horrible. You've lost everything, and you're really going to have trust in God still? And he's like, yeah, bro, I got it. All this stuff is temporary. I'm going to be up there soon, And it's so beautiful to see that, okay, every single story in the Bible that we reference now, they had trust in God, and that's how he worked in their lives. So if we see all these great examples in the Bible, if we're reading about them, maybe we should start applying them in our lives. Maybe we start applying them, maybe when we walk out of this room and it's like, okay, maybe you're low on gas. And you're like, I don't know if I'm going to make it there because I still got to pay for this and I still got to do this and this and this. Maybe we can just have some trust in God. Maybe instead of being so controlling over our own finances, and I know I'm in a different place to speak about it than you guys are, but I know when I need to pay for gas and I've got like $20 in my account, which is probably how much is in there right now. But whenever I'm at like a place where I'm like, okay, I'm kind of stressing about where I'm at. And then it's always this one particular like instance, but I either go and get gas or I'm about to, and then I'm approached by either like a homeless person or somebody who is asking for food. And instead of giving them money, I go in there and I use my money that I was going to use for gas and I buy them a meal. And it doesn't even have to be that big, but maybe just something like that to encourage us to trust God with our things that we're struggling with. Yeah. So I would like to pray over us to close this out today. So, God, I just want to thank you for the amazing group of people who are here right now, who are watching online, and for them to take time out of their day to want to grow closer to you, to want to learn more about your word and listen to other experiences and how you've worked in other people's lives, Lord. Continue to use our testimonies, not only for our own growth with you, God, but to help encourage other people and to help others in their testimonies. Our testimonies are not just for us, they're for other people as well. So allow us to feel the confidence to speak about you, God. Use our mouths as good instead of using it as a way of disgust against others, Lord. I feel like this world has enough horrible things going on in life where we catch ourselves saying or doing horrible things. But Lord, I ask that you purify our minds, our souls, our flesh. So Lord, I ask that earlier today when I asked what sins we're struggling with the most, Lord, take that sin that is at the top of every single one of your daughters and brothers, your daughters and your son's head right now. And Lord, I ask that you wash it away, that you give them a new sense of strength against their sin that they are struggling with, God. When they feel like they don't got it under control, Lord, allow them to feel peace because you have it under control. God, I just thank you for the love that you have filled this room with, for allowing me to speak your word today and genuinely speaking through me, God. I do this all for you, none for myself, and allow us to remember that today and as we walk into the next steps of our lives once we leave this room. And in Jesus' name, I just thank you and I pray. Amen. Amen. Thank you.
Listen, I work with high school students every day. They are not mature like this. This is amazing. I just thank you for being authentic.
Thank you.
For being real.
Trying.
And sharing the real stuff. Like, we're just really appreciative that you as a young person are just representing Christ everywhere you go in such a beautiful way and teaching adults, teaching us something today. So thank you. Thank you for that. Well, thank you for joining us online. Thank you for joining us here. We just pray that you're blessed this week. Come join us on Sunday at 10. Love you all and good night.